Dr. Q.
My God.
Oh my goodness, another episode. So today we were going to do part 3 of our series on anal leakage. Is that correct?
Just can we not be immature this time? Take this seriously. Representing the medical profession.
Well, yeah, I suppose. Although, anal leakage, so in all seriousness, let's get down to brass tacks. We're going to be talking hyperkalemia today. And in some ways, anal leakage is relevant and it can even be therapeutic. But we'll probably get to that a little bit later. By way of introduction, I'm Dr. Dre, probably the most alternative practitioner and educator. But I'm happy to join you guys today. Joined with me are my co-hosts. Dr. Q, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your favorite color.
I'm Dr. Q. I am a model train enthusiast, and I love hyperkalemia. Passing it off to Dr. PhD.
Yeah, my name is Dr. PhD. Favorite color, cheese brown, and I'm an anal leakage enthusiast.
Well, it sounds like we bring a lot of expertise to this discussion. So, but why don't we structure this around a patient presentation? So, it's another late night in the urgent care. You've had just about enough cases of anal leakage. You're hoping for some variety. One in comes a little old lady. She talks. She comes in stating that she's feeling quite unwell. She's having some muscular cramps. She's been confused. She hasn't been adherent to her medications. She's been abusing bananas. She's going absolutely bananas for bananas. You want to start by collecting some further history. So what are some pertinent questions, assuming that we're going to do a focused history around hyperkalemia?
I mean, I'm personally curious why she's really into bananas. Like, what's that about?
It's always been an interest of hers. She's naturally drawn towards sort of, phallic shaped objects, much like yourself. She has a pet monkey, perhaps. We can't collect much more information from that perspective.
No collateral from the monkey?
No monkey collateral. Monkey was left at home. But she said that she was, she had been really struggling recently, for example, to keep up with the monkey, experiencing sort of generalized fatigue, weakness, even some, sense of paralysis in her lower extremity. So quite profound.
My goodness. I think she might have some paresthesias. I'd ask her about that as well. And maybe some other foods, some less phallic shaped foods, maybe something more, more of the Benoit ball variety, I guess. Potatoes, tomatoes, squash and spinach, milk and cantaloupes would also be a factor in increasing her potassium. But, that's not going to get you points with your preceptor, I don't think. You'll probably have to go for where the money is. You'll have to go for the pharmaceuticals. What kind of pharmaceuticals is she taking that might be putting her at risk for electrolyte imbalances?
Right. So we've drawn a CBC, which is normal, and a Chem7, and indeed her potassium is elevated to 6.0 millimolar. So not insignificant. Is there any sort of, with that blood draw, is there any important consideration? And sorry, her creatinine is within normal limits, age appropriate. Is there any important consideration with that blood draw? This is sort of a read my mind type of question when as relates to hyperkalemia.
Yeah, I think the most important thing here is to double check on the electrolytes that come back on whether the sample is hemolyzed. As hemolyzed samples can cause artificially increased or pseudo hyperkalemia.
Beautiful. Yeah. So you could get a spurious elevation. And fortunately, the lab will usually comment hemolyzed plus whatever. So you may have to redraw that. And some other things that can cause spurious elevations include a high white count, like in the 20s type of thing, as well as thrombocytosis. So just bear that in mind. And I'm sure we've all encountered our fair share of urgent calls from the nursing station with a hemolyzed hyperkalemia. Okay, so
and what would you do in that situation? Like, I'd probably just rerun it if it was hemolyzed, right?
Yeah, I think that's sensible.
That'll be the easiest thing to do. And Dr. Dre here has a lot of experience with pseudo hyperkalemia, as one of the most common causes is actually a very tight tourniquet. And back in the day of just banging heroin into your veins, that can result in a bit of potassium elevation as well.
Absolutely, and you'll run into that not infrequently. The other nice use of a tourniquet is autoerotic asphyxiation. So yeah, I've definitely familiarized myself with technique more recently, and therefore avoided a lot of these spurious elevations here.
What about like a cock ring? Would that also?
It could do. Especially some of the newer, like the vibrating ones, are more prone to constricting that blood flow and therefore causing some hemolysis. So, yeah, an important thing. If you're taking a blood sample from the penis, be sure to use an appropriately sized cock ring. So those are two important considerations. So one is a fake or pseudo hyperkalemia. The other is some dietary sources of potassium, which is not irrelevant at all. Particularly people with CKD or impaired kidney function. If they've been, for example, any sort of prepared foods, things like chips, can just be loaded with potassium, and they're much more sort of susceptible to dietary shifts in potassium level. So we talked about food. We talked about some medications. Any other medications in particular? I think the most common that I've seen are folks that forget to take their diuretics. That's going to be the most common cause. Any other medications that might shift our salt balance? So diuretics is an important class.
ACE inhibitors be a big one. NSAIDs, ARBs. You want to watch out for things like Septra and maybe like potassium sparing agents like the spironolactone, amiloride, things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. So really any of these antihypertensives, in particular ACE inhibitors, and in fact, we just routinely, after medication change on ACE inhibitor in our community anyway, draw electrolytes 3 to 7 days to ensure that there's no dangerous changes there. So that's I think a good discussion of medications. I suppose another one would be non-adherence to insulin can bump the potassium as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think chronic heparin use as well can impair the aldosterone effect.
Right. Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a good point. So that's a good, so dietary, medication, other causes. So this is our little 80-year-old lady. She's been, having a little bit of conflict with her monkey. They've been fighting over bananas recently. And in fact, she suffered a significant fall and spent about an hour on the ground. What might we worry about with a trauma and some time on the ground, which is a not uncommon presentation in the elderly group?
Yeah, I think what you're fishing for here, Dr. Dre, is what you can get with a lot of crush injuries, which is rhabdomyolysis, and that can cause increased potassium via just destruction of cells, and it leaks into the blood. And kind of following up on that, a couple of other things that can cause like true elevation of potassium would be tumor lysis syndrome, as well as just like genuine hemolysis, not in the context of like pseudo hyperkalemia.
Right.
It's true. And actually in the police report for a little old lady with